Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monty Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Before we get into this month's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact Monty Wyatt by booking an appointment at www.addZerosNow.com. That's AddZerosNow.com. AddZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have a few coaching spots available for 2025. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm your host, Monty Wyatt. We call our audience the achiever because you're always striving for the next level. We have a great show today. We have a gentleman who is passionate about solving complex business problems through technology, systems, and process. Seamus Ruiz-Earle is the founder and CEO of Carabiner. Did I get that right?
Carabiner, you're almost
Carabiner. I knew I'd mess that up. A pioneering RevOps-as-a-Service firm established in 2020. Launched the company in his bedroom through the pandemic, and under his leadership has grown the company to an 8-figure business. In 2023, Forbes recognized him as one of their 30 under 30 list in enterprise technology. Seamus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. You know, you've done a lot in a short amount of time, and it's a big honor to be in Forbes 30 under 30. I'd love to have you start off by telling us a little bit about your story, how you got into business, how you came up with your idea of being RevOps as a service firm.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story. Long story short, I had wanted to be an investment banker. That was what I had chosen as my career path when I was in high school. I cold called a whole bunch of investment banks in San Francisco, trying to get any sort of job I could get, internship, to kick off, the year when I was 17. And all of them did the logical response, which was, come back to us when you're, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and actually useful. But one of them said, hey, if you teach yourself Salesforce, we need somebody to come in and help manage our systems. You could intern for us and do that. That kicked off a learning path where I got into Salesforce at quite a young age. Ended up working for that bank full time all through college. Spoke at Dreamforce when I was 18, and sort of scaled up in this consulting space instead of investment banking. Come along to 2020, the pandemic happens. I was all set to go and work for Deloitte Consulting in their Deloitte digital practice, and they delayed my start date by 9 months. And I got bored during the pandemic. I had 9 months and $90K in student loan debt, and I figured, hey, why not start a company to try and pay off that debt? Ended up starting in the Salesforce ecosystem, scaled it, hired 5 people before I decided I needed to do this thing full time. And along the way, found out about this thing called revenue operations and realized, hey, there's going to be a need in the market for RevOps as a service, right? This complicated operational function that can unlock so much value for a business, but you need a lot of different pieces of expertise to be really good at it, right? You need to understand the technology, the operations, the strategy, the tactics. How do I use, this tech tool that I paid so much money for, with all the other tech tools that I paid so much money for, to actually align with my strategic vision of a company. And once we made that unlock, we started growing like gangbusters, 400 or 500% per year. And, just recently sold the company to another firm called SBI Growth, who brings that strategic go-to-market lens to the table. And so now we're working with companies ranging from, a couple million in revenue all the way up to $1 billion in revenue. So it's been quite a ride.
Oh, it sounds like it. Well, you've done a lot in a short amount of time. That's pretty amazing. I'd love to hear more about the concept of revenue ops as a service? Because I think that might be a new term for some of our audience. So tell us a little bit about what that means and what that looks like.
Yeah, so RevOps is the function of maximizing the revenue potential of a business through the use of tech, data, systems, and process. That's really what RevOps is supposed to do. And RevOps as a service, what really ended up happening over the last 20 years or so is people started buying all of these tools and expecting the tools just to work, right? And that isn't really how it operates in reality, right? Actually, what you need to do is buy a tool like Salesforce or like HubSpot or Marketo or Oracle or NetSuite or any of these platforms. And it's almost like you're buying, a suit off the rack and then going and getting it tailored, right? It needs to be, put into place to really, mirror the actual business outcome that you're driving for and customizing it all and then making it play nicely with everything else, right? The
Sure.
proliferation of the 20, of tech over the last, decade or so means that people today have, dozens, if not hundreds of different pieces of technology in their ecosystem. And all those things kind of need to talk to each other and work effectively. And so, the traditional way of doing that would have been to hire, a Salesforce agency and then a HubSpot agency and then an Oracle agency and a NetSuite agency. And all of those folks would have operated in their own little silos to fix their own problems with these specific systems. And most of them would have been focused on the technology itself, not the business, right? Not the process. And so our breakthrough was saying, hey, why don't we bring all of that under one roof? We support 150 different tools and technologies in our agency and combine that with go-to-market, chops, right? How do you sell the tool? What is a customer journey? What's your opportunity stage weightings? What's your comp and quota and commissions plan? And all of this stuff all brought in together under one, subscription model that when you need the HubSpot person, you get the HubSpot person. When you need the go-to-market strategist, you get the go-to-market strategist. And sort of the best of both worlds, not needing to build out the whole team, but instead getting access to the expert you need when you need them.
That's fantastic. You know what? It's interesting hearing how did you come up with the idea and where did you really see that this was an opportunity in the marketplace?
Well, I think what I found pretty early on was that this concept of managed service providers had existed in the marketplace for so long, right? Outsourced tech support type of thing, right? When your computer breaks down and it's not working when you reboot it and everything, you call your managed service provider at many, many, many businesses. But really, that function didn't exist inside of the Salesforce and broader revenue operations ecosystem. We were the first to say, hey, when you buy a piece of software, you need to be considering the maintenance of it over the long term inside of your business. And that's kind of where we came into play of saying, hey, why don't we take that managed service provider model that has existed and been a great business for so many and apply that to the technology landscape, that is rapidly growing and proliferating.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's I'd love to hear. So you're still working and you hired 5 employees before you quit your job. Is that right?
Well, sort of. I was still I had a job lined up. I had that very unique opportunity where I had a job lined up. I just graduated college and I was supposed to start in June. And they, because of the pandemic, said, hey, we're not going to need you till January. So you still got a job. Here's a stay bonus type of thing, a couple grand to just literally stay in your room and watch Netflix and enjoy. You'll never get, the advice I got was you never get 9 months off again in your life, so enjoy it. And I was like, well, it's the middle of a global pandemic. I'm not going out traveling. I'm not enjoying it means building Legos, reading books, and watching Netflix. There's not a lot more to do in my childhood bedroom. And so, I ended up starting the firm with a substantial safety net, right? I had that job lined up for
Yep.
me, but I was able to still, work pretty much full time on it,
Oh,
throughout the time.
excellent. Excellent. So as you started the business, how did you get your first client? And tell us that story of that first barrier that you overcame to get that first client.
So first client was all network based. So there was a startup on campus at Boston College where I was an undergrad, and I knew the founder. he knew me, and we were able to touch base on that. And he needed some help managing a Salesforce instance. So that was the first client. And then the second, third, fourth, fifth clients came from, looking at people who had raised their hand online saying, I need help, right? It was going to places like Upwork or Fiverr or Craigslist or LinkedIn, where people were saying, hey, I need some assistance with this thing called Salesforce. Can you come and, give me a hand? And from there, it was doing really good work and having the network effect, come into play. So when you do good work someplace, someone raises their hand saying, anybody know anybody who can help, right? We get referred in. And that I'm very fortunate that function still happens today. We have
Absolutely.
all sorts of people coming in and saying, hey, this person recommended you, or hey, you worked with me here and now I'm moving over to this other company. I'd like to take you with us. We're very fortunate that we've got lots of friends and we've done good work
You
and
bet.
pay dividends.
Oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. It's networking, it's getting out and getting to know people. And was that an easy thing for you to do to go networking, or was that a challenge for you?
Well, I think it's a mix, right? So at the time I was 20 years old, 21 years old, depending on when you draw the line, those early days. So honestly, the hard challenge was, how do you inspire confidence without, you know, we're not talking entirely small dollar amounts in many respects here. So, we're providing a critical business function. We're getting paid, well to do so. You gotta walk a pretty fine line between inspiring confidence and making sure people really believe that you can do what you're wanting to do. Getting out there, I think once we had those client examples and testimonials and proof points, it became much easier.
Oh, great. We call our show "What's Your Ceiling" because we want to hear stories about how you've broken through challenges or opportunities. As you've grown, what do you look for in a team member? As you're hiring somebody, what are the critical factors you look for? Because our audience is always hiring as well, and I want to hear what you look for when you hire that next employee.
Here's what I would tell you. My opinion on this is that working hard matters more than anything else. I, I don't look like, at any college degree or any particular pedigree or anything like that. What I care about is that someone's going to show up to work, give it their all, ask for help when they need it, but that they're really going to be a problem solver and try to add value. I do think that we're in a bit of an era now where that trait is there's a lot of entitlement, and a lot of distrust between employer and employee, right? And boss and team member, because at the end of the day, right, we're also in a position where companies need to do well by their teams, right? None of this laying off people right before the holidays or, all of the things that we're seeing be so commonplace, right? I used to keep my great grandfather's 25-year IBM watch on my desk here, and show it to people and say, hey, you may not be able to stay here your entire career, and I totally understand that. But we want this to be a place where you can, stay if you want to, right? And I think that there needs to be that mutual trust back and forth. And the way that, what I look for is that hard work, right? If we use the analogy of the professional athlete on a sports team, we want the guy or gal who's showing up every day, 6 a.m. doing their training session and working all the way through, to be the best player that they can be. And that bridges so much, and helps people stand out from a crowd. That's always been, those are the most critical team members we've had,
And how have you attracted that individual?
Well, I think again, it goes towards reputation. It goes towards reputation, and it goes towards, trusting your community and your network. So when someone knows what it's like to work at Carabiner, they're not, going to refer their buddy that, wants a 9 to 5 and just to clock in and clock out every day. They're going to refer the person that they want in the trenches alongside them, right? Likewise, our customers sometimes refer people to us and say, hey, this person needs a growth opportunity. They work really hard. They'd love to come in. And then, I also, I think it's important to keep building a company brand and consumer brand out in the market so that candidates know, that this is the type of place, that takes care of their people and that, wants growth for them, should they take that opportunity.
I think that last part you just said is very important that many people don't do is focus on the branding of the company when it comes to recruitment. And what are we known for in the interviewing world? What are we known for in the communities? Whatever it might be, and building that so we know and people know what we're looking for and that we are serious about what we're recruiting for. So I love to hear that. I'm guessing you've grown a little bit in the last 4 years since you started the business. What would you say is the biggest growth that you've had in whether it's your mindset or how you solve problems since the day you started the business to today?
Golly, I think if we were to really boil it all down, it's funny given the name of the podcast, right? What's your ceiling? Um, I don't think that ceilings, like if you have a certain baseline of ability and drive, there are very, very few things that you cannot do in the world, again, given the right circumstances. Now, there are always things, I'm very cognizant of my upbringing and my access to resource and I was fortunate to be able to go to a top institution, top university, top high school, and grow and have support from my family and all of the things that not everybody has, right? But caveating all of those things to the side, I'm now a 25-year-old with far more influence and network and wealth and experience and all of those different things than I ever would have thought possible. And it's generally because I was able to step off that pier and take the risk, and really go for it. And so I think if you compare where I was graduating college, very ready and content to go and work for Deloitte for 25 years to try to make partner, to where I am now advising multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions on how to manage their tech stacks. I think that's a very different, world. I operate now in a very different world than I ever would have thought possible. And I think it definitely combines into the what's your ceiling component. Your ceiling's wherever you set it, right?
Yep.
At least that feels how it is in most environments.
I love what you said. You got to take the risk and go for it. And I think that's something I want our audience, the achiever, to recognize is when you have challenges, you've got to take the risk. And because you never know what's going to happen. And you probably wouldn't have imagined 4 years ago, 5 years ago, what you'd be like today.
That's it. It never in my wildest imagination.
So tell us, how do you balance your time from working and your family life and your health? How do you balance all that?
I think the answer is poorly, Monty, to be honest with you. No, I think I was given a talk last year at a university and we had a similar question and my answer is very much that it's work-life flow, not work-life balance, right? There are going to be times where your business needs your full undivided attention. There are going to be times when your family needs your full undivided attention. And then if you don't give your health attention, then there's going to be times where your health needs full undivided attention. And I have, for better or worse, had periods of all three of those, over the last 5 years. And, I think, done well, you surround yourself with people and systems and community that support you, so that you can have that flow and have that understanding. Um, Life is all about trade-offs, and I think anybody who's deciding to get into a journey like this needs to recognize that there absolutely are trade-offs, and getting a better handle on those as early as you can certainly helps.
Yeah, I love what you said, work-life flow, because it happens, it ebbs and flows, but you said it very powerful. Surround yourself with the right people, the right systems, and the right community. And I think that's a great thing. So who would you say is your uh, in your inner circle, who's really helped you the most? You
Oh
don't have to
God,
name names, but tell us how they've helped you.
no, I think there's probably three or four different categories. There's family, right? If you're fortunate to have a family and that you can lean on, that's incredible. If you've got the people you work with, right? Your team, going back to it, you want to pick the right team members who you share values with and that you can commiserate with and lean on and grow with and all of those different things. And then there's your broader community, and that can be your faith community, that can be your business community, but people who, understand what you're going through and are willing to be there again as support systems. So, I'm a part of any number of different CEO communities, and that really goes a long way in helping, have some compatriots when the going gets rough.
Absolutely. We all need that. And I want to reinforce that to our audience, the achievers. You got to have that community that whether it's any part of your life, that you need a coach, you need someone, you need a best friend, you need a confidant, you need someone that's going to challenge you to make sure that you are thinking the right way, you're approaching something correctly for your life and for your business. So I love that you shared that. I love that you shared that. So, I always like to ask, um, how do you define success? You've accomplished a lot. You got a great team. How do you define success?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it depends on what stage in life you're at. Um, and I think it depends on what you value. Uh, for me personally, um, I'm at a point now where, I was able to achieve a certain degree of financial independence. Um, I have access to people and communities that I didn't have access to before, and I'm able to have life experiences that I didn't, wasn't able to do before. And right this moment, my work-life flow is in a pretty healthy spot between all three of those things. Having, sold the firm recently and having a bit more support from a financial sponsor behind that transaction. So that's what it means for me. I was very fortunate to have achieved a lot of the different public recognition things quite early in my career. And, I'd be lying if those things didn't, make you feel good and, you know, um, give you a little bit more, attention from the media and from prospects and all those things. But I also um, am very familiar and aware of the fact that those things feel real good for 15 seconds or 15 minutes, and then you got to go back to the grind. And if you're not, back working at it, then it doesn't really mean all that much. And it certainly doesn't mean, trading off with more time with your family or something like that just to get those things. So I think that's what it means for me, but I also think that it changes quite a lot, and depending on what season of life you're at, it's perfectly reasonable to index off of different things. But that I expect for that to shift for me as I continue to grow as a professional.
That's a great thing to reinforce, that it depends on your stage of life and what's most important, where you're at, what you're putting your energy towards. And I think that's a great statement. I'd love to hear a little bit about, for to build that success, to build the company. What are some things that you've learned? I see a lot of books in the background. What's some of the biggest things about leadership and management that you have learned from whether it's mentors or those books to get you where you are today?
Well, I think maybe there are two that I'll share with the group. One is there's a book by a friend of mine, good friend of mine named Sam Jacobs, called "Kind Folks Finish First." And I've been on the lecture circuit a bit, and particularly when I speak to young people, I often give them sort of an analogy. Uh, you know, who would you rather be in business with, or who would you expect to do better in business with? And I use Mr. Rogers on one side, and then I use whatever the cutthroat business person who's in the news is, on the other side. And almost everybody always says that the cutthroat business person is the partner who you would make you more successful. Right? It's usually about 85% of the kids think that. And then on the flip side, you say, who would you rather be friends with and hang out with after school? And almost everybody picks Mr. Rogers. And so I end up going down that path with them, and I'm like, well, why on earth would you want to do business with somebody that you wouldn't want to hang out with and make you think that that's going to make you more successful? And we have a long conversation about that. And anyways, the point of the book is that there is empirical evidence as well as plenty of examples from anybody who's been in business long enough to say that 9 times out of 10 people are doing business with you because they like you. Very rarely is there something that you're offering in the marketplace that is so differentiated that people don't have a choice but to work with you. Right? They're doing it with you because they like you and they trust you and they think you can help them. And if you maintain those things above all else and you're kind in nature, it doesn't mean that you're not going to, make, disappointments along the way, and, that you're not going to screw up along the way. But if people don't think that you're actively trying to screw them, it goes a long way at helping you in business. The other piece that I'll add is that I think I was very fortunate that the initiative that I tried first, the business that I started first, was one that was differentiated enough to be successful, but not enough that I needed to totally redefine a market. I didn't need to go and start Facebook. Facebook is always held up as being one of the greatest success stories, and certainly it is. But the grounds around Facebook are filled with the detritus of failed startups who are trying to do similar things. And when you consider business, oftentimes the most successful ones are the ones that set up shop right next to their competitors, differentiated just a little bit in a validated market, and were able to grow relatively quickly and profitably. And so that isn't to say, hey, we shouldn't innovate as a country, as an industry, or anything like that. But particularly if you're a first-time entrepreneur, picking something that is tried and true and saying, hey, this is going to be my little corner of the soil, I think is something that often is overlooked.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, is that you want to, so many people want to be that innovator, that new idea guy that makes sure that we bring something new to the market. But there's a lot of things out there that just need a little competition. You can just be this much better and really take over the market. And I think that's a great point. So I love that you shared that. How about, is there a ceiling that you're working to break through at this point? Is there a challenge that you're really striving to work with your team or yourself? You just got purchased, so it's probably a little challenge of new relationships and things like that. Is there any ceiling that you're working through right now?
I think when you join a new company, right, through acquisition or otherwise, there's always a learning curve of how do you operate inside of that new environment. So I think our team now is trying to fit into a new company, trying to understand what are the keys to success inside of this new environment, and fit in as part of a new delivery motion, right? How do we know what we know how to do? How do we modify that to best fit amongst a different type of environment? So that's a ceiling we're working on now.
Yep. I think that's probably a good challenge for everybody, because they probably have new processes, new people, new actions to think about. So I appreciate you sharing that. I really appreciate your time, Seamus. This has been a great conversation. I've captured a number of things so far. You look for people that work hard, that are problem solvers. And I loved how you said it's mutual trust. We have to trust them. They have to trust us when you're recruiting. So I thought that was fantastic. And I love the work-life flow, and your last part of being kind. Yeah, kind folks finish first. That's a great book. That sounds like that talks about people do business with who they like, and I think that's a very powerful message. So I appreciate you sharing those today. The last question I always like to ask is, what do you want to be known for?
I've had a number of people in my life who have been, and I can picture any number of them right now, who have been the people to give the hand down to be able to pull me up, right? The hand up to whatever it is. And I think that of everything, of all the levels of success, if you can have, if you can be known for the person who's going to help you out when the going gets rough, however they can, that really is the biggest thing, right? it's going to go the furthest. It has ramifications on every part of your life. And so if I can follow their examples of, giving the 17-year-old kid the shot, or the 20-year-old kid the shot, or the 22-year-old kid the shot, or the 24-year-old kid the shot, or whatever it might be, right? I've had so many examples of this in my career. It becomes very important to me that I can do the same, helping out high school students, college students as they're on their journey, or even, young professionals who are trying to find their way in the world. Don't know everything, of course, but what I do know, I try to be very forthcoming about sharing. And if I can be known for that, then I think I'll have done my job right.
Oh, that's fantastic. That would be a good way to be known for, and good way to leave the world, being known for that. So
Absolutely.
you bet. You bet. Seamus, I really appreciate your time. This has been a good conversation. Anything else you would like to share with our audience, the Achiever, our business owners, our CEOs, on how to be a great CEO and run a big company? Any suggestions that you might have?
Maybe the last takeaway that I'll give the crowd. I think there is absolutely a tendency when you're a CEO to go from very, very high highs to very, very low lows. And that oscillation is one of the most emotionally challenging and mentally detrimental oscillations that exist, right? One day you're making Forbes 30 under 30, the next day you have to do 10, lay off 10 people that you never hoped, you would ever have to do. And that really sucks, for lack of anything better. And so the best CEOs I know are ones who artificially manage their oscillations between high and low. And they, sort of like that old adage of there's a story about a farmer and his son who breaks his leg, and all the villagers say, oh, how terrible. And then the farmer says, we'll see. Right. And then, the next day, a military leader comes along and recruits all the men, but he can't because, the son has broken his leg. And it's like, oh, how good for you. We'll see. Right. And like, this too shall pass, I think, is the premise, right? The
Yep.
very, very high highs will pass and the very, very low lows will pass. And so if you can stay somewhere in the middle and stay focused on those things, those systems, again, that I talked about before, that will give you the emotional endurance to really get through this thing we call entrepreneurship in as intact a way as possible.
You just shared a new phrase that I'm going to use more often: emotional endurance. Everybody needs that to manage those highs and lows.
Amen. That's it.
Well, excellent. Well, I want to thank you. If our audience would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out, or to your company or to you?
Well, I'm always happy to respond to folks on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way so far. And there's only one Seamus Ruiz-Earle, so that name is pretty unique when it comes to Google searching. So that'll work.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you for joining us. And I want to thank our audience, the Achiever, for joining us today as well. Hopefully you gained a couple insights on how to grow yourself and grow your team and be a great CEO. So really appreciate your time, Seamus. And everyone have a great day. Make sure you like and subscribe.